Hey there, Drowsy Historian here. Tonight, you're not a soldier, not a policymaker, not even a protester. You're a fisherman, a man with a sunburned neck, weathered hands, and no political opinions strong enough to matter. You haul tuna, you mend nets, you steam quietly through the Pacific aboard the Daigo Fukuru Maru, Lucky Dragon number 5, just trying to bring something home. You've never seen a nuclear weapon. You don't know what fallout is, but you're about to learn, slowly, painfully, and without consent. The sky will change colour, the sea will fall silent, and history will scrape your name into its margins with a half-broken pen. Before that ash starts falling, do me one small favour. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love seeing who's drifting off to these quiet tragedies from across the world. And if you'd like early access to more of these historical bedtime stories, ad-free audio of the episodes, or just want to support the show, you'll find the Patreon link in the description. But for now, lie back, get comfortable. Let's begin. The harbour at Yaizu smells like old salt, fish guts, and wet wood. Nothing poetic, nothing clean, just the ordinary scent of work. You don't think about it anymore. It's the same scent that soaked into your childhood, into the floorboards of your father's house. The sea has always been part of your air. This morning, the docks groan under crates of gear, coiled nets, rubber boots, spare lines, boxes of white rice, and a few quiet men with strong backs. One of those backs is yours. You board the Daigo Fukuru Maru just after sunrise, your feet clunking on the wood as you haul your kit up the gangplank. She's not much to look at, 93 feet long, older than she should be, with peeling paint and rust that never quite goes away, no matter how often someone scrapes it. But she floats, and she catches fish. That's all she needs to do. The others are already settling in. You nod to them, but no one says much. There's no need. You've worked with most of them before. Fishermen don't waste words when there's a voyage ahead. You all know the routine. You load your things, you tie them down, you check the coils, you test the engine with a practiced ear, not for perfection, just for the familiar rhythm of something that probably won't kill you. The captain gives a short wave. That's all the ceremony there is. No speeches, no blessings, no fanfare, just the low rumble of the diesel engine, coughing to life, and the sharp creak of mooring ropes being pulled in. The dock shrinks behind you. You don't look back. Home is something you carry in your stomach, in the face of your wife as she handed you a folded lunch, in the last words your daughter mumbled while half asleep. You'll be gone for a few weeks, that's all. Just long enough to fill the hold with tuna and return with enough money to make the next month less tight. Maybe you'll buy a better blanket. Maybe your boy will get new shoes. That's the dream. Not a big one, but it's yours. The first day at sea is always the same. There's a nervous energy that gets flattened by the hours. You recheck the lines, then recheck them again. You boil water for tea and let it cool too long. You listen to the steady churn of the engine and let your thoughts wander, but not too far. Thinking too hard this early into a voyage only makes the days feel longer. You watch the horizon roll in slow rhythms, clouds stitched above water like half-formed thoughts. The sea doesn't speak much out here. It doesn't need to. The silence is enough. No one here expects history. No one here asked for it. You are not a witness. You are not a participant. You are a man with a job, and the world so far has let you do it. The Daigo Fukuru Maru hums beneath you as it pushes deeper into the Pacific. The dock is long behind you now, the mainland reduced to memory and haze. The engine holds a steady rhythm underfoot, throaty, mechanical, oddly reassuring. You rest your back against the cabin wall, eyes half closed, watching the water shift from green to blue to black with the fading light. It's only been a few hours, but you already feel it, something loosening in your chest. Not joy, not fear, just distance. The land pulls away, the sky opens wider, and the sea, vast and silent, makes room for you again. You lie back and listen, as the boat breathes forward through the water. The wood creaks, the engine pulses, someone coughs, then the quiet returns. The Daigo Fukuru Maru carries you gently into the dark, and the dark does not object. As the days pass, the hum of the engine fades into the rhythm of your body. Like the tick of a watch, you no longer notice. Time stretches out in long salt-crusted days and short, cramped nights. And before you realise it, the voyage has found its shape. You no longer need to ask what day it is. You just feel it in your knees, in the calluses on your hands, in the soreness that settles quietly into your spine by mid-afternoon. The first few days blur together. The sea isn't exactly kind, but it isn't cruel either. It simply is. A living thing that doesn't care if you understand it. You fall into your tasks with the ease of repetition. Set the lines, haul them in, gut the catch, ice the bodies, mend the nets when they tear, because they always do, eventually. Saltwater frays everything. Ropes snap, hooks bend, leather softens and splits. The ocean isn't loud, but it eats things slowly, deliberately, with quiet teeth. You've seen it before, and you'll see it again. There's a comfort in knowing exactly how everything will wear down, including you. Each man on board has his own pattern, his own small rituals to keep the tedium from turning inward. The radio operator smokes more than he should, even when the wind makes it difficult. The cook sharpens his knife obsessively, though the blade already glints like glass. One of the younger crewmen has taken to carving small shapes into a piece of driftwood, fish mostly, and something that might be a dragon if you squint. No one talks about shore unless they're telling the same tired stories. No one asks how long it's been. That would only make it feel longer. Meals are eaten cross-legged or hunched, depending on what's available. The space inside is narrow and smells of damp wood, cooked rice, and the faint but permanent aroma of diesel fuel. You pass around bowls of miso soup, scrape the last grains of rice from your tin, and rinse with seawater when you can. No one eats quickly, not because they're savouring it, but because chewing is one of the few things you can do without thinking. No one complains. Complaints don't make the boat any bigger, or the food any better, or the sea any calmer. Conversation comes in small, quiet doses. Someone makes a joke about the squid looking more respectable than the crew. Someone else hums an old song from the mainland and gets the lyrics wrong. You laugh, but only a little. It's not forced exactly, just rationed. You have to conserve certain things out here. Fuel, energy, patience, even laughter. You don't want to use it all up too early. At night, you lie in your bunk with your knees curled and your back pressed against wood. And sometimes you think about home. You picture your child's face, but the features blur if you try to focus too hard. It's easier to remember the sound of footsteps, the clatter of a bowl, the soft thump of a sliding door in the morning. You're not sure how many days you've been gone. Maybe 8, maybe 12. It doesn't matter. They'll know you're back when you return, and that's all that counts. You remind yourself that you're doing this for them, that the smell in your clothes, the ache in your shoulders, the numbness in your fingers, it all buys food and firewood and maybe a moment of peace if the weather's kind when you dock. The work never stops, but it shifts. Some days the nets come back full, fish flashing silver in the sun, thrashing with blind panic. You move quickly then, slicing through gills, separating meat from guts, loading the icy hold below until your arms burn. Other days the ocean offers nothing but sullen silence, and you spend your time checking knots, testing lines, pretending that preparation is a kind of progress. No one says it aloud, but everyone feels it. The ocean doesn't owe you anything. You pass the time with maintenance, scrub the deck, patch holes in canvas, rewrap fraying ropes. You've learned to love small tasks. You can finish them. You can see the result. It's not like the larger questions that sometimes creep into your thoughts late at night. Questions about what's happening in the world, about what the Americans are doing out here, about why the radio keeps going quiet for hours at a time. But those questions don't catch fish, so you push them away. The younger men talk about women mostly, sometimes money, occasionally baseball. Their voices drift across the deck, soft and unhurried. You let them talk. You remember when you were young enough to think that conversations like that mattered. These days, you'd rather listen. Let them fill the silence while you focus on tying a better knot or making sure the ice isn't melting too fast. Every once in a while, you spot something out on the horizon, a dark shape that might be a military vessel or just a trick of the light. You don't wave, you don't signal. You're not supposed to be anywhere forbidden. This is international water, open fishing ground, still yours. If someone's watching, they'll see a harmless tuna boat. 23 men, not soldiers, just workers, just specks on the sea. One afternoon, the captain calls out coordinates. You adjust course slightly. A few of the men murmur something about getting close to the atoll. Bikini, someone says, but the name doesn't carry weight the way it should. It sounds small, unimportant. You've never been there, only seen the name on charts. You've heard rumours about tests, about the Americans moving people away, about clouds and blasts and ships turned to metal skeletons. But that's all distant, foreign. It's not part of your job. And jobs are what matter. If the captain says the fishing's good here, then you fish here. The water looks the same, deep, blue, infinite. No markings, no boundaries, just waves that stretch toward the horizon, like tired promises. The air smells normal, maybe a little sharper, maybe not. It's hard to tell. You cast your lines, you ready the nets. The sun burns your neck, but that's nothing new. You've stopped noticing the little pains, the small indignities of salt and sun. They come with the work. March begins without ceremony. You barely notice. The cook mutters something about the date as he hands you a bowl of rice with pickled radish. You nod, too tired to mark the occasion. It's just another day. The same rituals, the same sea, the same engine humming below your feet. You sit on a crate and eat with your back against the cabin wall, watching the water glitter. No storms in sight, no bad omens. Just the horizon, flat and unbroken, and the slow churn of a boat that has always brought you home. That night, you sleep a little more deeply. The wind is calm, the stars are clear, and the rocking of the ship feels almost gentle. You think about your daughter again? Try to remember the way she mispronounced words when she was small. You almost smile, but the memory is too thin, too far away to hold. You roll over in your bunk and press your hand against the hull, feeling the vibration of the engine. It's steady, comforting. A sign that everything is still normal. It begins like nothing at all. Just another morning, March 1st. The sky's pale and cloudless, the ocean slow and glassy beneath a mild sun. You're checking the nets. The fish haven't been great, but they're not bad either. The crew is quiet, focused, half awake. A few of them are scrubbing down the deck with seawater and worn brushes. The cook is lighting the stove again. You can smell something vaguely burnt. It might be rice, or it might be the pan. You can't tell. Everything feels ordinary. And then the sky turns white. Not light, not bright, white. As if someone tore the top layer off the world and exposed whatever was underneath. It's not like sunrise. You know sunrise. You've watched it from the deck more times than you can count. Sunrise is slow, gentle. This is neither. This is immediate and absolute. A flash that swallows the horizon and fills the air behind your eyes. You don't look at it directly. You don't need to. It wraps around you. It seeps through your skin. For a moment, it isn't just light. It's presence. It's pressure. It casts shadows inside your skull. The deck goes still. No one speaks. You shield your face. But your hands feel useless against something that seems to come from everywhere at once. The white isn't just in the sky. It's in the water, in the metal of the railings, in the sweat already forming on your back. The brightness hums against your teeth, as though the bones in your jaw are conducting something they were never meant to carry. For a second, you wonder if it's lightning, But it doesn't fade, not quickly, not cleanly. It lingers at the edges of your vision, smeared and unnatural, like a mistake the sky refuses to admit. When the light finally recedes, it does so reluctantly, as if dragged backward by force. You blink, and the world has changed. The colour of the ocean is wrong. Not by much, just enough to make your stomach tighten. The sky looks like it was scrubbed too hard, like the blue has been worn thin. You hear someone swear. Another crewman yells for the captain. You're not sure what you're supposed to do. The net in your hand sags limply. The fish are forgotten, and then you wait. The silence stretches. Too long. The light came and went, but the world hasn't caught up. You look around. The others are staring out at the horizon, shading their eyes. One of them says it might have been a volcano, maybe something on an island nearby, maybe an accident. His voice is shaky, but no one corrects him. No one knows what to say. You feel something low and deep begin to rise inside you. Not panic, not yet, but a kind of unease that starts in the gut and coils upward, like bad weather. Then finally, the sound arrives. It doesn't come all at once. It comes in layers. First a low rumble, like distant thunder, but heavier, rounder, with too much weight behind it. Then a wave of vibration that climbs the hull and enters your feet, your knees, your spine. You brace without thinking, one hand on the edge of the cabin wall. The boom follows, a deep concussive crack that rolls over the ocean like a god slamming a door. It hits your chest and steals the air from your lungs, but not with speed, with inevitability. Like the sound was always coming, and the world simply had to wait until it was ready. It's the kind of sound that makes the mind go quiet. It isn't loud in the way of engines or storms. It's loud in the way of mountains falling, in the way of something permanent being undone. You hear it in your ribs. You taste it at the back of your throat. A tang of metal, of blood, of something sour and burning that wasn't there before. The crew is frozen. A few have crouched down instinctively, their hands covering the backs of their necks, like school children in a drill. Others are still standing, eyes wide, mouths slightly open. One of the older men mutters a prayer. The captain says nothing. He doesn't need to. Whatever happened, whatever caused that light and that sound, it wasn't small. It wasn't near, but it wasn't far enough either. You scan the horizon for smoke, for a column of ash, for something you can name. There's nothing. Just open water and the curve of the earth, and a silence that now feels sharper than it did before. The kind of silence that follows a wrongness too big to explain. You rub your fingers together and realise they're trembling. You tell yourself it's just surprise, just adrenaline. But the taste in your mouth is getting worse. Like old coins, like a burnt battery. You try to spit, but it doesn't help. No one resumes work. The nets are left half-tended. The stove is off. Even the cook is standing on deck now, arms crossed, eyes scanning the horizon, like he's waiting for something to materialise. But nothing does. The sea stays calm. The sky stays blue. But it's the kind of blue that doesn't feel like sky anymore. The kind that looks painted on. Someone says it might have been a test, an American one. They've done it before, haven't they? Dropped bombs out here? Moved people off islands and set fire to the sky in the name of science? Someone else says nothing at all, just leans against the railing and closes his eyes like he's trying to make the last few minutes go away. You don't say anything either. What would you even say? You don't know what it was. You just know how it felt. And the feeling hasn't left. The deck feels warmer now, not hot, just wrong. You touch the rail, it's dry, dusty almost, as if something settled on it that shouldn't be there. You rub your fingers together again and notice a faint residue, pale, powdery. You wipe it on your pants. It doesn't come off. No orders come from the captain. No warnings over the radio. No one tells you to panic. So you don't. You go below deck slowly, as if speed might invite whatever just happened to come back. You sit on your bunk and listen to the hull creak and the water lap gently against the side of the boat. The engine still hums beneath you. You tell yourself that means everything is still working, that whatever happened, it's already over. But you don't feel that way. Not really. You feel like something's begun, something you don't have the language for. Someone coughs in the other room. Someone else clears their throat 3 times sharply, like they're trying to shake something loose. You hear the sound of boots pacing across the deck, then pausing, then pacing again. The stillness doesn't last, not truly. Everyone finds something to do, even if it's meaningless. A rag gets wrung out. A drawer gets reorganised. A rope gets coiled twice. You're not told what to do, so you return to the nets. That's what you know. That's what's always made sense. But your hands... Well, hands don't work quite the same way now. Your grip slips. Your arms feel like they've been working all day, even though it's barely mid-morning. The sun looks wrong. You tell yourself that's just your eyes adjusting. The flash, after all, was bright. Too bright. Maybe your vision's just catching up. You keep working, because there's nothing else to do. The ocean offers no explanation. No message in the waves. No apology in the breeze. Just the steady, maddening calm of something too big to notice you. Around midday, someone notices the specks on the railing. They weren't there before. Pale dust, so fine it moves with the breeze. At first, it's just a few grains, barely more than mist clinging to the metal. Then more of it appears on the ropes, the nets, the edges of your sleeves. You wipe your hands thinking it's salt. Just ocean spray dried by the sun. But it doesn't feel like salt. It's softer, drier, like powdered chalk. Someone calls out and points upward. That's when you look up and realise it's falling. The sky rains white. Not flakes exactly, more like ash, light, weightless, drifting down in lazy spirals. There are no clouds, no wind. Just this slow descent of pale particles, too uniform to be natural, too quiet to be explained. One of the younger men laughs. He sticks out his tongue, catches a few grains, and grins like it's the first snowfall of winter. Someone else rubs it between his fingers and shrugs. Maybe it's volcanic dust, someone says. That happens sometimes after eruptions. You nod, though you've never seen it before. It doesn't seem dangerous, just strange. It gathers on the deck, on your clothes, in your hair. You try brushing it off, but it clings. Static, maybe, or moisture. It settles into the corners of the boat, like it belongs there. You watch it collect on the rim of a water bucket, where it floats like flour on soup. The captain emerges from the cabin, looks around, frowns, then walks away without a word. No orders are given. No warnings are shouted. The men carry on. You carry on. What else is there to do? At lunch, you sit with your back against the cabin wall, bowl in hand, watching the white fall into your rice. You try to brush it away, but it's everywhere, on your chopsticks, in your tea. You eat anyway. Hunger is hunger, and this trip hasn't exactly been abundant. You tell yourself it's harmless. Just dust, just something in the wind. Maybe it'll pass. The taste in your mouth, though, it's changed. Not from the food, from the air. You breathe in and feel something dry coat the back of your throat, like powdered stone, or sand you weren't expecting. It's not strong, but it's persistent. A bitterness that doesn't go away. You sip water, but the taste remains. You run your tongue across your teeth and feel grit there. You spit over the side, watching the foam swirl below, and wonder where all of this is coming from. By evening, the boat looks different. The whole deck is dusted in pale ash. Your clothes are streaked with it. Your eyebrows carry a faint shimmer. It doesn't hurt, it doesn't sting, but it's unsettling. The kind of thing your body notices even if your mind hasn't caught up. A wrongness with texture. No one says so, but everyone's moving a little slower now. Eyes squinting, voices softer. You hear someone cough, then another. You tell yourself it's the dry air. It's always dry at sea. Someone jokes about ghosts. Another says it looks like the ashes of a burnt god. You don't laugh. Not because you're afraid, because it just doesn't feel funny. You wipe your face with a cloth and find it leaves a smear. You try again. Same result. The dust isn't just falling, it's sticking, melting into sweat, curling around the roots of your hair. You rub your arms and feel the fine grit against your skin. It doesn't come off clean. No one suggests going inside. The space below deck is too cramped, too airless. Better to stay on top, where you can breathe. Even if the air tastes like crushed metal now, you lean against the railing, watching the particles fall and fall, as if the sky forgot how to stop. There's a kind of beauty to it if you squint. It looks almost peaceful. Almost. By nightfall, the laughter's gone. The dust hasn't stopped. It's in the food stores, in the blankets, in the folds of your boots. It lines the rims of your nostrils. Your breath feels heavier now, like it's dragging something with it each time you inhale. You wipe your lips and find a powdery residue. You press a finger to your tongue and recoil. It's not just dry, it's bitter, like chalk soaked in rust. You gather with the others around the small table near the galley. No one eats much. There's nothing to say. The cook has stopped trying to keep the rice clean. He shrugs when someone asks. Just eat, he says. It's all the same now. You pick at your bowl, eyes half-lidded, body beginning to ache in a way that doesn't feel like fatigue. It's subtle, but it's there. You've stopped brushing the dust away. It returns too quickly. It falls into your hair as soon as you shake it out. It settles behind your ears. It collects at your collarbone. You run your fingers through your sleeves and feel the powder there, coating your arms like talcum. One of the crewmen mutters that it smells like burnt stone. Another says it smells like hospitals. You don't say what it smells like to you because you don't know. It just smells wrong. The captain still hasn't said anything. He hasn't told you to head back. He hasn't told you to stay. He watches the sky the way a man watches a fire in the distance, unsure whether it will come this far. The radio operator has been fiddling with dials for hours now, chasing static. The signal keeps cutting in and out. No messages, no updates, just white noise, just the soft fall of ash across the equipment. You try not to scratch, but your skin itches. Just a little at first, a tightness behind your ears, a prickling sensation along your forearms. You roll up your sleeves and rub the spots, thinking, it's just the salt, just dryness, just friction from a long day in the sun. But the feeling doesn't go away. It spreads, your back, your scalp, the insides of your knees. It doesn't burn, it just crawls. Below deck, the bunk smells like dust and sweat. You lie on your side and try to find a position that feels less itchy, less damp. The blanket clings to your skin, and your skin feels unfamiliar, thinner somehow. The wood of the hull creaks beside your face. You close your eyes, but you don't feel tired anymore. Just worn down, just hollow, just covered in something that won't leave. You scratch your wrist until it reddens. You turn over and scratch your thigh. The ash is still falling outside. You can hear it when the wind shifts, a soft patter like moth wings against canvas. You breathe in and the air catches in your throat again. Dry, bitter. You pull the blanket up anyway and press your cheek into the pillow. You try to sleep, but your skin itches. By the next morning, the ash has stopped falling, but it hasn't left. It's settled into every surface, pressed into fabric, into skin, into the spaces between teeth. The deck is streaked with pale smudges where boots have dragged it into new shapes. Someone tries to mop, but the water turns grey and leaves a film behind. No one tries a second time. The captain stands near the bow for a long time, not saying much. When he finally speaks, his voice is quiet. He tells the crew to weigh anchor. You're turning back. There's no debate, no resistance. Everyone knows. No one says it aloud, but the mood has changed. Something is wrong. It isn't just the dust. It isn't just the sky, which still looks too wide, too quiet. It's the bodies, your own, theirs. The way your skin feels looser than it should. The way your stomach clenches without warning. You spit into the sea and see red in the foam. Just a little. You say nothing. What would you say? The engine roars to life again, slower than usual, like the boat itself doesn't want to move. You point the bow toward Japan and begin the long return. The radio operator still hasn't caught a signal that makes sense. Static, occasionally a voice cut off mid-sentence. Nothing about fallout. Nothing about bombs. Nothing about what was in the ash. The word radiation hasn't been spoken, not once. You get back to work because you don't know what else to do. There are still fish in the hold. There are still lines in the water. You still need to earn. The boat costs money to run. The port will want its cut. Your family will still need rice. The tuna must be sorted, measured, packed on ice. The ice is dirty now, but no one says that either. You work with gloves. You scrub your hands afterward, though the smell doesn't leave. The catch looks off. Some of the tuna have strange spots on their scales. A few are bleeding from the gills. One fish, when gutted, smells wrong. Not just rotten, chemical. Sharp and sour, like something that shouldn't be inside something that swims. You toss that one overboard. A few of the crew glance at you, then do the same. Quietly, without comment. The men are slower now. You notice it in their posture, the slouch, the heaviness in their steps. No one stands up straight for long. Someone vomits over the side, then wipes his mouth and returns to folding netting. Another man crouches and presses a cloth to his face, shaking his head slowly, as though trying to rattle something loose behind his eyes. You wake with nosebleeds. You tell yourself it's the dry air. Your skin is changing. You notice it when you run your hands through your hair and find strands tangled between your fingers. You notice it when you smile at a joke someone tells and feel a blister split on your lip. The itching hasn't gone away. Now it's joined by small patches of redness, of peeling, of soreness beneath the fabric of your clothes. You press your hands to your stomach and feel warmth there. Not the comforting warmth of a meal, but something deeper, feverish. You don't ask the others if they feel the same. You already know. The days stretch out, each one quieter than the last. The conversations die first, then the jokes, then the songs. By the third day of your return journey, the only sound is work. Hook scraping, rope being pulled, the hum of the engine. The wind carries no relief, just the same dry taste, the same sharp scent of something mechanical rotting in the back of your nose. You try drinking more water. It doesn't help. The cook has stopped trying. The meals come smaller now, thrown together with little care. Rice mostly. Lukewarm, sticky, too dry. Sometimes miso if there's strength for it. You eat because you have to. You chew slowly because your gums hurt. You swallow hard because your throat is raw. You try not to think about the bowl of rice that was covered in ash. You try not to remember how it tasted when it fell on your tongue. At night, the bunks feel more like coffins. The air down below is thick and motionless. You lie still, eyes open, waiting for rest that won't come. Your joints ache. Your spine pulses with discomfort. You shift once, then again, trying to find a place in your body that still feels like yours. You scratch a blister until it tears. The liquid is clear at first, then not. You wrap it in cloth and say nothing. You dream less. When you do, the dreams are dull and slow. Just endless fields of white or walls that breathe or skies that blink. You wake with your mouth dry and a copper taste behind your molars. You rinse with tea. You spit red into a bucket. Someone else does the same. No one says anything. No one has to. The sea is still calm. Too calm. The fish grow fewer as you near the coast, but that's expected. What isn't expected is how quiet the ocean feels. No birds, no other vessels, just the empty water stretching all around you. The boat pushing through it like a ghost through fog. The sun hangs above you, wide and yellow and indifferent. The radio coughs out a broken sentence. Something about weather. Something about drift. Then more static. The operator keeps trying. He's pale now. His lips are cracked. He smokes less. Not out of caution, just out of fatigue. You can see it in his hands. They tremble when he lights the match. You don't ask what he's heard. You don't think you want to know. You look at the faces of your crewmates and see your own reflection. The dark under the eyes, the ash still caught in the folds of the ears, the slow way everyone moves now, like they're dragging more than muscle, more than bone. Like something inside has turned to lead. You speak less each day. The silence doesn't feel like peace anymore. It feels like rot. The captain hasn't left his post in hours, maybe days. He keeps one hand on the rail, as if anchoring himself in place. His knuckles are raw. His jaw is tight. He hasn't spoken since the second morning. You watch him sometimes and he watches the sea like it might offer answers. But it never does. When the first man collapses, he does so quietly. Just sinks to his knees beside a coil of rope, eyes dazed, hands limp. He doesn't cry out. He doesn't explain. Someone helps him to a bench. He doesn't get up for hours. You check his pulse. It's there. Barely. The cook brings water. It spills before it reaches his lips. He swallows anyway. The rest of you go back to work. You begin to notice that no one's fingernails look the same anymore. Some have turned brittle. Others have darkened. You hold your hand to the sun and feel a sudden chill, as though something has peeled away beneath the skin. Your gums begin to bleed on the 5th day. Not much, just a little pink in the sink. But it doesn't stop. When you finally see the coastline, it doesn't feel like a return. It feels like something else. Like crossing a line you weren't meant to find. The harbour at Yaesu looks the same as when you left it. Same dock planks warped by weather. Same rusted cranes yawning into the sky. Same nets hanging limp on shore like washed out skin. But nothing feels familiar anymore. Your boots hit the dock and your knees buckle, just for a moment. No one notices. Everyone's moving slowly now. Not deliberately, just heavily, as if gravity has increased in the time you've been gone. There's no welcome committee, no cheers, no greetings, not even the usual grumbles from the port inspectors about paperwork or cargo. A few dock workers approach, and then stop short, their expressions shifting from recognition to hesitation. Someone whispers. Someone else turns and walks the other way. It's small, but you notice it. The kind of gesture you wouldn't have thought twice about 2 weeks ago. Now it sits under your skin like a sliver. The unloading begins in silence. The fish are packed in layers of half-melted ice, their eyes cloudy, their flesh stiff. You help hoist the crates, though your arms ache and your palms have started peeling in strips. Every movement stings. You feel slow, not tired, just delayed, like your muscles are receiving instructions through water. A few crates are stacked neatly by the edge of the dock, waiting for inspection. A man from the fish market steps forward, takes one look, and steps back again. He doesn't touch them. He pulls a handkerchief over his mouth and speaks to someone else in a low voice. That's when the murmurs start. You don't know how the words spread so fast. Maybe the radio operator told someone. Maybe someone saw the dust still caked around the railings. Maybe it's just the way you all look. Sunken, blistered, hollow. But within an hour, the whispers turn to questions. Within another hour, the questions turn to accusations. By the time the sun is overhead, the men from the fish market are refusing to unload. They wave you off like you're carrying plague. The crates sit there, untouched. The catch, days of labour, weeks of cost, starts to thaw in the sun. You smell it before you see it. A faint sweetness, the early rot of flesh that's been poisoned from the inside out. Someone yells. You don't catch what they say. Another man throws a tarp over one of the bins like it'll make a difference. You don't remember sitting down, but suddenly you're on a crate, elbows on knees, watching as the harvest you bled for is slowly declared unfit for market. A government official arrives in the late afternoon. You know he's government, by the way. He doesn't touch anything. And by the clipboard he holds like a shield. He doesn't speak to you. He doesn't speak to anyone on the crew. He walks along the dock, stares at the fish, then turns to a man in uniform and nods. That's all it takes. The word comes down like a blade. Contaminated. Every crate, every fish, marked for disposal. You ask what that means, where they're taking it. No one answers you directly. They're not here for you. They're here for containment, for optics, for protocol. Someone mutters something about radiation. Not loudly, just enough for the word to land and sit heavy in your chest. You hear a shout across the harbour. Genshiro Sen, Death Ash Boat. That's the name they're already giving you. You're not even off the dock yet, and already the people you live beside have decided you're carrying something inside you that can't be washed off. They bring trucks to collect the fish. Covered, discreet, but not discreet enough. You see the crates loaded and driven off under tarpaulins that billow in the wind, giving glimpses of what's underneath. The ice has melted. The fish are slick and grey and curling. The market won't touch them. The factories won't process them. You watch money, weeks of it, drive away with the stink of failure trailing behind it. Someone from the press shows up the next morning, then another. By noon there are cameras on the dock, and men in ties are asking questions you don't know how to answer. When did the ash fall? Did anyone warn you? Did you eat the fish? Did you eat the ash? What does your skin feel like now? You blink through the flashes and try not to squint. You don't want to look afraid. You're not even sure what you are. Just a man in stained overalls, bleeding slowly from the gums and trying to remember the name of the sea you almost died in. Eventually, the pressure builds, not from concern, from embarrassment. A hospital in Tokyo agrees to admit you and the rest of the crew, not because they want to treat you, but because reporters have started asking why no one has. You're not taken by ambulance. You're taken by train under escort, like something fragile that might leak. The compartment is sealed. The windows are closed. You're told not to touch anyone. You were never dangerous before. But now, they treat you like you always were. The first thing they do is take your blood. They don't ask. They don't explain. They just roll up your sleeve, swab your arm, and slide the needle in while a nurse makes a note on a clipboard without looking at your face. The room smells like alcohol wipes and floor wax. You sit on a padded stool that creaks when you shift your weight. There's a poster of a healthy heart on the wall beside you, the bright red cartoon veins seeming a little too cheerful. You don't ask how long the testing will take. You don't ask what they're looking for. You already know they won't tell you. The other men are brought in one by one. Some are pale, some are flushed. A few walk without help, but only just. They sit with their heads tilted back, or their hands folded over their stomachs, like something is aching just beneath the surface. You recognize their faces, but something's changed. The skin looks tight around their cheekbones. One man, whom you bunked beside for nearly 2 weeks, has a nosebleed that won't clot. He dabs at it with a tissue that's already turned soft and pink. No one talks much. You hear coughing behind the curtain. Not dry, not sharp. The kind of cough that starts low and gets stuck. You're moved to a narrow room with a single bed, a sink, and a door that doesn't latch from your side. The sheets are stiff and smell faintly of bleach. There's a small window, but the glass is frosted, and you can only make out shapes through it. Shadows of people passing, sometimes standing, sometimes not moving at all. Meals come on a tray: white rice, miso soup, a little fish. You try to eat, but your appetite slips away somewhere between the first and second bite. Your mouth hurts. You press your tongue against your molars and feel them shift. You stop pressing. They weigh you every morning. You don't remember losing this much, but the numbers keep dropping. A nurse writes it down without a word. Your skin has started peeling. Not all at once. In patches, behind your ears, under your arms. The nurse offers a cream. You don't use it. It doesn't help. The doctor comes in later with a folder full of charts and a gaze that slides past you like a breeze. He asks questions like he's reading them off a checklist. Headaches? Yes. Nausea? Yes. Fatigue? Yes. When you ask what's happening, he says, "We're still reviewing the results. You don't bother asking again. You're not alone in the ward. Your crewmates are nearby in separate rooms, separated by curtains or thin walls or just the rules no one explains. Sometimes you hear them. One man throws up every hour. Another groans in his sleep. Sharp, wordless sounds that make your chest tighten. Once you hear someone calling for water in a voice so hoarse you don't recognize it. The nurse doesn't respond right away. You want to get up, but your knees tremble too badly. When she finally does come, the voice is quiet again. You don't know if that's because it was answered or because it stopped. The government sends a man with a badge to ask questions. He's not a doctor. His shoes are too clean, his eyes too narrow. He wants to know how close you were to the test site. You tell him you don't know there was a test site. He scribbles that down. He wants to know how much dust fell. You say it covered everything. He doesn't look surprised. He wants to know if you ate the fish, if you touched your eyes, if you wore protective gear. You don't answer that last one. You just look at him until he stops writing. No one uses the word radiation. Not the nurses, not the doctors, not the officials who drift in and out of your room like ghosts taking inventory. What they say instead is unknown illness. What they write down is exposure to unidentified substance. What they offer are saline drips and soft reassurances that mean nothing. You know what's happening. You've read the newspapers. You've seen the articles about Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You've seen the photos. You remember the stories about skin falling off in sheets, about teeth coming loose, about children who stopped growing and never started again. But no one says that word here. Not allowed. A nurse brings you a thermometer. She wears gloves. You watch her hands, thin latex stretched tight over knuckles. She doesn't look at your face. When she speaks, it's with a practiced calm. She asks how you're feeling. You say, worse. She nods and makes a note. Then she leaves without touching anything else. You pull the blanket higher and try not to notice how cold your feet are. The temperature in the room hasn't changed. You have. You hear a rumour that one of the crew has stopped eating entirely, that he's lost too much weight to sit upright, that his blood pressure is low enough they've moved him closer to the nurse's station. You don't know if it's true. You haven't seen anyone since arrival. You haven't been allowed. Every interaction is managed, every question deflected. You could be the only one left for all you know. The isolation doesn't feel like care. It feels like containment. The doctor comes back with test results. He flips through the pages like he's never seen paper before. He tells you that your white blood cell count has dropped, that your platelets are low, that your immune system is under stress. You ask what that means. He hesitates. Then he says it could be due to the voyage, or possibly an infection, or maybe malnutrition. You stare at him. You want to ask if he'd believe that answer, if he were the one in your bed. But you don't. You already know the script is written. You're told not to worry, that you're being observed, that steps are being taken, but no one will say what those steps are. You're given another saline drip. You're offered a vitamin injection. You're given a towel to clean yourself, but the water in the basin is lukewarm and smells faintly of something metallic. You wipe your face. The towel comes away streaked with pale skin. At night, the lights never go fully off. The hallway glows through the crack under your door. The walls breathe quietly. You try to sleep, but the ache in your gums keeps you awake. When you close your eyes, you feel your teeth pulsing, as if your own body is beginning to let go of itself. You press your hand to your stomach and feel nothing firm beneath it. Just something shifting, like silt in a riverbed. The nurses don't come as often anymore, only when necessary. You've started coughing. A dry sound at first, then wetter. You press a cloth to your lips and see rust-coloured spots. You fold it and tuck it under your pillow. No one asks about it. No one checks. You are in a hospital. But you are not being treated. You are being monitored. You are being watched. Isolation has not brought comfort. It has not brought safety. It has only brought silence. You sit alone in a room built for sickness and surrounded by people afraid of what you carry. You are no longer a fisherman. You are a variable, a test case, a body that reacted to something no one will name. The days inside the hospital have blurred into a slow grey smear. You measure time now by the shape of your aches and the quiet that follows the nurse's footsteps. You don't know what day it is when you first realise that Kuboyama isn't getting better. You only know that something has shifted. The coughs you used to hear through the thin walls of your ward, sharp, regular, stubborn, have changed. Softer now, slower. Then they stop altogether, and that's somehow worse. He's in the room next to yours. He has been since the beginning. You haven't seen him since you disembarked. But you remember the way he looked on the boat. Kuboyama Aikichi, 40 years old, the radio man. He had a habit of humming under his breath while fiddling with the dials, a sound that never seemed to match the pitch of the sea. He was a quiet man, not shy, just steady. He always knew how to find a signal, even when there was only static. Now you hear nothing from that room except the rustle of sheets and the occasional clink of metal against tile. The nurses come and go more often now. They wheel in equipment and wheel out silence. You don't ask questions. No one offers answers. You lie still and listen. Sometimes you hear him moan. Sometimes you hear him whisper something too soft to make out. You hear one of the doctors say he's not eating anymore, that the vomiting has returned, that blood loss is becoming an issue. They say it clinically, like they're taking inventory. You press your head to the wall and try to remember the last thing you ever said to him. You can't. Your own symptoms haven't improved. The bleeding gums, the peeling skin, the bone-deep ache that's moved into your jaw and doesn't seem interested in leaving. But your condition has plateaued. You're stable, they say, whatever that means. The tests continue, but the attention has shifted. It's all focused on him now. The first to worsen, the first to fall far enough that even the quiet doctors can't pretend it's anything else. You hear him vomiting once in the middle of the night, a wet, choking sound that seems to scrape the walls of your own stomach just hearing it. Then comes the silence again, too complete, the kind of silence that doesn't wait for sleep to settle over it. It arrives with finality, like a door slamming shut. The next morning, you hear the nurses whispering just outside your door. One says his hair has all come out. Another says his eyes look sunken, like the flesh behind them is giving way. The phrase internal bleeding is mentioned. You think of the red in your own spit and feel a deep cold bloom in your chest. They start giving him injections around the clock, something to manage pain, though no one says what kind. You can't see him, but you can hear the change. His voice, when it comes, is soft and strained, like it's trying not to inconvenience anyone. One day, through the wall, you hear him say he's sorry. You don't know who he's saying it to. Maybe the doctor, maybe the nurse, maybe the air. He says it over and over again, like he thinks he's done something wrong. You want to speak to him. You think of knocking on the wall. Just once, a shared signal, something to remind you both that you're still here. But you don't. You lie still and listen, and think of the sea, and the nets, and the soft dust falling like snow onto your bowl of rice. You think of how he sat beside you that day, chewing slowly, brushing the particles off his sleeve without a second thought. You wonder what was inside that dust, what it broke inside him. They move him into a different room 2 days later, further away. You only know because the nurses no longer pause outside your door, because the silence has moved with him. You lie in your bed and try not to wonder what he looks like now. You imagine him thinner, smaller, diminished, but he was already thin to begin with. You remember the hollows of his cheeks, the narrow curve of his shoulders. He wasn't built to carry this. None of you were. You hear the phrase terminal for the first time from one of the younger nurses, spoken in a whisper, not meant to reach anyone still conscious. You pretend not to hear. You turn your face toward the wall and close your eyes. Your mouth tastes like metal. You run your tongue along your teeth and feel the wobble in one of the molars. You don't touch it again. News of his condition spreads outside the hospital before it's ever confirmed inside. A reporter prints a story about a deteriorating patient. He doesn't use Kuboyama's name, but everyone knows. The crew reads it from their beds and no one speaks. The article ends with a quote from a government official saying that there's no confirmed link between the incident and the patient's condition. You look down at your hands, at the skin that now comes off in thin translucent ribbons when you scratch, and wonder how much confirmation they're waiting for. You hear the priest come 2 days before the end. His voice is soft, reverent, practiced. You can't make out the words, just the rhythm, the rise and fall of something meant to be comforting. You imagine Kuboyama lying there, half-conscious, bones pressing against sheets, lips too dry to speak. You wonder if he's afraid. You wonder if he knows what's happening, or if, like the rest of you, he's been left to guess. On the last morning, the hallway goes completely still. You don't need to be told. You feel it in the quiet, in the way the nurses move slower, in the way the curtains rustle without footsteps following. Someone says his name just once, then nothing. You hear later, through a doctor who didn't think you were listening, that his final words were simple. "I pray I am the last victim of an atomic bomb." That's what he said. Not with bitterness, not with rage, just with the tired hope of a man who wanted his death to mean something more than just another body in a file. You know he won't be the last. You already feel it in your own bones, in your own teeth, in the way your skin no longer responds to the air the way it used to, but you understand the prayer. You understand the desire. You lie in your bed and stare at the ceiling and think of the sunlit deck of the Daigo Fukuryu Maru, of the way Kuboyama used to squint at the radio, with one eye half closed, waiting for the crackle of voices through static. You think of how the ash fell across his lap. You think of how none of you moved fast enough. They take his body away that night. Not with ceremony, not with care, just a gurney, a white sheet, and a clipboard. You don't see it. You only hear the wheels against the tile, the soft squeak of rubber that disappears before you can lift your head. The next morning, your room is cleaned a little more thoroughly than usual. A nurse asks if you've eaten. You say no. She doesn't ask why. After Kuboyama dies, everything should feel heavier. It doesn't. Not in the way you expect. What follows isn't grief. It's management. Statements, headlines, distance. The nurses stop saying his name. The doctors stop referencing his charts. The space he occupied becomes a number, an outcome, a statistic folded into reports that never find their way back to you. There's no funeral, at least not one you can attend. Just another round of testing, another visit from someone with a badge who asks the same questions, in slightly different order. It's not mourning that takes hold of the hospital. It's calculation. Outside the hospital, something colder is unfolding. The United States issues a statement. They say you were in the wrong place, too close, a regrettable accident. They insist the blast area was marked and that all vessels had been advised to stay clear. You know, this isn't true. There was no warning, no broadcast, no barrier in the ocean. The sea looked as it always did, blue, silent, open. The ash didn't ask where you were supposed to be. It fell where it wanted. The Japanese government doesn't fight the claim. Not forcefully. There's no official apology, no public acknowledgement of failure, no sharp defense of the crew that sailed from Yaizu. What they do instead is issue vague reassurances. They say the situation is being handled. They say exposure is being monitored. They say the illness is still under investigation. Radiation is mentioned only when absolutely necessary, and even then it's tucked between layers of careful language and diplomatic breath-holding. The press fills the gaps. Newspapers run photos of the Daigo Fukuryu Maru tied up at the harbour, its hull streaked with rust, its deck scrubbed but never clean. The crew is described as contaminated. The word is used more than once. Some articles treat you as victims. Most do not. They speculate. They question. They ask why you are fishing so far from home, why your records are incomplete, why your symptoms are so severe when the official fallout zone was so small. The implication is clear. You must have done something wrong. You are not a hero. You are not even a cautionary tale. You are a complication, a wedge between governments trying to pretend they're still allies, a headline that refuses to stay quiet. The doctors still won't name what's wrong with you, but the world outside has already decided you are the problem. Not the bomb, not the ash, you. When you're finally discharged, it doesn't feel like freedom. You're not healed, you're not whole, you're simply no longer useful to the hospital's routine. You're told to rest, to eat well, to report any new symptoms. You're not told where to go for help. You're not given anything beyond a folder of papers written in language dense enough to mean nothing at all. You carry it home, like a shroud. Your neighbours don't welcome you back. Some won't meet your eyes. Others pretend not to see you at all. One man crosses the street when you turn the corner. A child stares until his mother pulls him away. You try not to take it personally, but it is personal. Your presence makes them uncomfortable. They've read the headlines. They've seen the photos. You don't look contagious, but that's not the point. You look like a question no one wants to answer. Your wife cleans the house before you return, scrubbing the floors and washing the bedding like she's trying to prepare for something that might not want to be let in. She smiles, but it's a tired smile, the kind that cracks at the edges. You sit at the table where you used to eat dinner, and you can feel the distance between you growing by the minute. She asks how you're feeling. You lie and say you're fine. She nods. Neither of you speaks again for the rest of the meal. Reporters come the next day. They knock on the door just after sunrise. Polite at first, bowing, asking if you'll give a statement, asking if you can describe what the dust looked like, how it felt, what it tasted like. You don't answer. They come back again the day after that. This time with cameras. You close the shutters. You stop answering the door. Your daughter asks why you don't go outside anymore. You tell her you're tired. She touches your hand and says your skin feels rough. You say it's from the sea. You don't tell her it still flakes off in your sleep. You don't tell her about the dreams, about the way your fingernails no longer grow straight, about the way the ache has settled permanently behind your ribs. You don't want her to think of you as broken. The fishing company you worked for dissolves a few weeks later. Quietly, no ceremony. The other boats return to port and are inspected, but the buyers won't touch their catch. Consumers are afraid. The term death ash has made its way into public speech. No one knows exactly what it means, but they know they don't want it near their dinner. Tuna prices collapse. Orders are cancelled. Men you worked beside for years now walk the docks with empty hands and bowed heads. Some look at you like it's your fault. Others don't look at all. You try to get another job. No one's hiring? Not a man with your face in the paper? Not someone who's been described as irradiated. You visit 3 canneries. 2 say they'll call. 1 says nothing. You don't go back. You start spending more time indoors, more time sitting, more time doing nothing. Your wife doesn't ask what you're thinking. She doesn't need to. She already knows. You receive a visit from a government official, though he doesn't introduce himself that way. He arrives in a dark coat, carrying a thin briefcase and a thicker smile. He says he understands how difficult this must have been, that you've endured much, that cooperation is appreciated. Then he asks if you'd be willing to stop giving interviews. Not that you've given any, but the suggestion is clear. Be quiet. Let this settle. Let it go. He slides a small envelope across the table. There's money in it, not a lot, just enough to feel like an insult. He calls it a gesture. You don't ask who it's from. You don't take it. He doesn't press. He just folds his hands and says, very gently, that these things are sensitive, that everyone is watching. that it would be better if no one stirred up unnecessary fear. After he leaves, you sit at the window and watch the street. A few children pass by on their way to school. A woman hurries toward the market, her scarf pulled tight over her mouth. A man on a bicycle glances at your house as he rides past. No one stops, no one waves. The world is continuing, just without you in it. You're told, unofficially, that it would be best not to speak to the press anymore, not to attend public gatherings, not to linger too long near the harbour. It's not an order, it's a suggestion. But suggestions, when given from a government with no interest in acknowledging your existence, sound a lot like warnings. You think about Kuboyama's last words, how he prayed he would be the last. You know that prayer wasn't for men like you, it was for the children who haven't yet learned how fragile their skin is, for the workers who still believe they can return home from a shift without carrying something inside them they didn't consent to, but it lingers with you. You repeat it sometimes in your head, not because you believe it, but because it's something to hold on to when the silence presses in too thick. You are not a hero. You are not even a victim. You are a reminder, and reminders are never welcome for long. The silence becomes routine. After the reporters move on, and the government stops knocking, there's a lull that almost feels like peace almost. You get up in the morning, make tea, and sit by the window as the sun passes slowly across the same patch of floor it always has. The street outside becomes familiar again, but not friendly. The faces that once nodded in passing now slip quickly away, as if the shape of your shadow might still carry the wrong kind of air, but at least they're not yelling anymore. At least they've stopped calling you names. Your body, however, has not forgotten. In the early weeks after discharge, you convince yourself the worst is behind you. The vomiting slows, your gums stop bleeding quite so often, the itching dulls to a manageable crawl. You even gain a little weight, you begin to hope. Not out loud, not all at once, but somewhere beneath the exhaustion, something resembling optimism stirs. You tell yourself that the dust is gone, that it passed through you, that it's settled and washed away, that maybe time is enough. Then your hands begin to shake. At first, it's only when you grip something tightly, the handle of a teacup, the edge of the kitchen counter, but then it spreads. You try to write a grocery list and the characters slide crookedly across the page. You drop a bowl and watch it splinter on the floor, rice scattering into corners. You apologise to your wife, and she tells you it's fine, but the way she stoops to clean it says otherwise. You feel the apology settle into your shoulders. Some nights you wake with pain deep in your joints, knees, hips, wrists. Not the sharp ache of strain or age, but something deeper, hollowed out and slow, like bone softening from the inside. Your vision blurs sometimes in the morning, a hazy film that takes longer and longer to lift. You blink hard, rub your eyes, try again. Eventually, the world returns to focus, but not always clearly. You begin to see halos around lights. You struggle to read signs across the street. The doctors say it's age. They always say it's age. You're not young anymore, after all. You nod, because it's easier. But part of you knows what this really is. You remember the colour of the dust. You remember how it settled in the folds of your clothing, in your lungs, on your food. You remember breathing it in. You remember swallowing it. You remember never being warned. You aren't the only one. Word drifts in from the other men. Your crewmates scattered now across different towns, different hospitals, different beds. One loses his teeth. Not one or two, but all of them falling out over the course of a month like a body surrendering itself in stages. Another is diagnosed with liver cancer. Two more suffer chronic fatigue so severe they stop leaving their homes entirely. One man tries to go back to sea and collapses on the dock. His body simply won't allow it. You get a letter from a crewmate you haven't seen since the hospital. He can't walk without a cane now. He says his skin feels like it's not attached to him anymore. No one makes announcements. There are no official statements tying your symptoms to the test, to the ash, to that impossible light in the sky. The government occasionally issues a medical stipend. Small, infrequent, filtered through layers of red tape. There is a committee. There are papers. You're asked to fill them out again every few years. They're always slightly different than before. Like the rules are shifting just fast enough to stay out of reach. When the money does arrive, it does so quietly. A deposit, a sealed envelope, no apology included, just a figure and a signature, and an unspoken expectation that you won't ask for more. It is never enough, and it never feels like recognition, only avoidance, a way to close a file. You don't spend it. You keep it tucked away, unsure whether using it would mean accepting something you don't want to accept. You try to find work again, but the labour your hands once knew so well has become impossible. You can't grip the way you used to. Your knees give out without warning. You forget small steps in simple routines. One morning you leave rice on the stove for nearly an hour and don't realise it until the smell curls bitter into the corners of the room. Your wife says nothing, but she watches you more carefully now, as if waiting for another slip. You find yourself staring at objects for too long, trying to remember why you picked them up, what you meant to do with them. You stop going out most days. It's not shame exactly, it's preservation. You tire quickly, you forget names, even of people you used to know well. You walk into the market and lose your place. One time, you forget how much change to give the grocer and stand there eyes blank until he gives you the coins and waves you off. You don't return after that. The world feels too sharp. Your body, too slow. Your daughter begins helping more around the house. She's older now, old enough to ask questions you can't answer. She once brings home a school assignment about the hydrogen bomb test. She reads the textbook aloud, and you listen as the pages explain the yield, the blast radius, the decision-making behind the test. It doesn't mention your name. It doesn't mention the boat. It doesn't mention the men who inhaled the ash and carried it home in their blood. She doesn't ask what you think of it. You're not sure she has to. The word fallout comes up more often in the news now, but it always refers to somewhere else. Somewhere distant, Bikini, Rongelap, Nevada. People talk about radiation like it's an abstract concept, a threat that belongs to other maps, other men. You know better. You've carried it with you for years, in your marrow, in your teeth, in the softness of your joints when the weather shifts. You've learned to live beside it, to fold it into your days, to name it only when no one is listening. The doctors still avoid saying what it is. They say degenerative symptoms. They say chronic conditions. You say nothing. You just sit in the chair they assign you, let them take your pulse, let them check your eyes, let them murmur to each other in low voices you're not meant to hear. They give you pills for the pain. They don't give you much else. Sometimes you sit alone with your hands on your knees and try to remember the sound of the boat, the hum of the engine, the slap of water against the hull. Those are the details that feel furthest away now. Not the explosion, not the ash, not the hospital. Those have stayed close, but the quiet before, that part is fading. The warmth of sunlight before it changed colour, the taste of clean salt air before it turned to metal. You try to hold on to it, but your memory slides too easily now. You still live, you still eat, you still move through your house, but it's not the same body that boarded the Daigo for Kurumaru. That man didn't ache in his spine every morning. That man didn't flinch at bright light. That man didn't lose track of what day it was by midday. You carry something with you now, and no doctor, no government, no apology has ever named it properly. You don't need them to. Your joints swell, your hands tremble, your vision dims, and your mind, once sharp, sometimes forgets where you were heading before you stood up. Your joints ache more in the rainy season. You tell yourself it's just the weather, just the passing of years, but deep down you know better. You don't say it out loud, not to your wife, not to your daughter, not to the doctor, who glances at your chart like it's a puzzle he's already stopped trying to solve. You keep quiet, You sit by the window. You read the paper. And every so often, something in the headlines reminds you that the world never stopped what it did to you. The Americans keep testing. Castle Bravo, the name of the test that changed your life, was not the end. Not even close. You learn the names of other operations, other blasts with sterile titles that make them sound like drills or training exercises, Operation Teapot, Red Wing, Hardtack. You read them like they're part of another world, but you know better. They're part of your world now, whether you wanted them or not. They test in Nevada, in the Pacific, in places with names that don't mean much to people who don't live there. The papers call it progress, a show of strength. They publish photographs of mushroom clouds with captions like scientific achievements, as if the sky being torn open is something worth celebrating. You read about islanders forced from their homes, families in Rongelap and Utirik, places you had never heard of before, where the ash fell so thick it blanketed palm trees and rooftops. Their children play in it, just like some of your crewmates had, just like you did, without knowing, without warning. You see a photo of a girl from the Marshall Islands, her scalp covered in sores, her eyes dull. No one told her not to stand in the snow. It's the same ash, the same powder, the same silence. American soldiers start appearing in the stories too. Test witnesses. Atomic veterans, they're called. Young men in uniform stationed near the blast zones, told to observe without protection, to march toward the glow for data collection. They smile in the photos at first. Later they appear in interviews. Their voices slower, their eyes fogged. They talk about cancer, about infertility, about skin that stopped healing. You know those stories. You don't need to hear the endings. Closer to home, it's the children. In Japan, pediatricians start reporting spikes in thyroid issues, especially in towns where milk was delivered from cows that grazed too near the drift paths. Babies born small, young girls developing lumps in their necks, boys who don't grow the way they should. You read the reports and feel a tightness in your throat, as if something long buried is pressing upward again. Your daughter was small once too. You remember watching her eat rice sprinkled with flakes of ash that looked like seasoning. You told yourself it was nothing. Everyone did. You see the term global fallout start appearing in the headlines, not in bold, not on the front page, but buried in the third or fourth column. Scientists publish maps showing how the wind carried particles across oceans, over borders, through clouds and farmland and cities. It wasn't just you. It was never just you. But for a long time, the world pretended otherwise. You watch protests unfold on television, students in Tokyo, marchers in San Francisco, mothers in London holding signs with skulls painted over nuclear symbols. No more Hiroshimas. Stop the bomb. We are all downwinders. You hear chants you don't recognize in languages you don't speak. You wonder if any of those people know your name. You know the answer. They don't. In the 1960s, treaties are signed. The newspapers call them milestones, partial bans, promises to slow down, promises to stop testing above ground, promises that sound careful but not certain. You hold your breath for a moment, reading the headlines. You let yourself hope, just for a few seconds. But the tests don't stop. They just move. Underground, underwater. Further out of sight, but not out of reach. You still feel the tremors in your ribs. The men from your crew, those who are still alive, begin to pass away more frequently now, quietly. Some from cancer, some from liver failure. One man's obituary doesn't mention the boat at all. Just says he was a fisherman. Just says he is survived by a wife and 2 sons. You read it twice. You fold the paper. You stare at the floor for a long time. Compensation becomes a subject again. New hearings, new panels. Your name is requested, then mispronounced, then misspelled. You sign a form you've signed before. The amount they offer is higher this time, but so is the weight of it. You hold the envelope in your hands and feel no victory, no vindication, just the reminder, you are that the damage was real enough to put a price on. And that the price is still not enough. You try writing a letter to a journalist once. You don't send it. You try explaining what the light looked like, how it came before the sound, how it made your bones feel hollow, how your crewmate's skin changed colour, how the hospital walls closed in but never offered answers. You reread what you've written and decide it won't matter. The world already has its narrative. You are a footnote. You are an incident. You are an old man with shaking hands who still dreams of chalk falling from the sky. Your daughter grows up, moves out, becomes someone stronger than you thought possible. She studies medicine. She asks you once if it was your illness that made her choose it. You don't know how to answer. She brings her own child to visit you, a boy who stares wide-eyed at your hands, at the bandage over your knuckle, at the way your fingers bend the wrong way when you try to wave. He doesn't ask questions, not yet. You see books being published, documentaries, newscasts with dramatic music and archival footage. Castle Bravo becomes something historic, something remote, something explained by men in glasses using diagrams and phrases like yield and containment failure. They talk about it like it happened to someone else. And in their stories it always did. You're not mentioned. Your crew is summarised in a sentence, maybe two. Japanese fishermen exposed to fallout. Sometimes they get the number of survivors wrong. Sometimes they forget Kuboyama's name. You say it quietly to yourself now and then, just to make sure someone still does. There are moments when you think maybe it would have been better to be remembered properly, to be honoured, given a monument, a plaque, something with names carved into metal, but the truth is that wouldn't change anything. It wouldn't regrow your teeth. It wouldn't bring back the friends you lost. It wouldn't fix your blood. And so you do what you've done since the beginning. You endure, quietly, steadily. As the world continues spinning, testing, detonating, denying, there is a word for what happened to you. It exists in every language now. Fallout. But there is no word for who you are. You are older now, that much is obvious. You move more slowly, not with the gentleness of old age, but with the caution of someone who has learned that bodies can fail in ways no one prepares you for. Your joints still ache in the morning, and your hands still tremble, though you've learned how to fold that into your routines. Your daughter calls once a week. Your grandson visits when he can. Your wife still brews tea every morning, and sometimes the two of you sit by the window without speaking, just watching the light move across the room. You've learned to live without explanation. The world has moved on, though it never really came back for you. The stories have been written. The facts, at least the ones people are comfortable acknowledging, have been printed, cited, revised. Your name might be there, buried in a list or in the caption of a photo no one looks at for long. But most people don't know who you are. You are not the story. You are the background of the story. A consequence, a curiosity, a small, sad detail. You never wanted to be part of history. You didn't seek attention. You didn't dream of recognition. You wanted to fish, to feed your family, to earn your living by honest work and return each night with tired hands and a full net. That was enough for you. You were never ambitious. You were consistent. You woke early, you worked hard, you did not complain. History didn't care. It came anyway. It found you on a calm morning, on a deck full of coiled nets and cheap cigarettes and steaming rice, and it dropped its weight onto your shoulders without warning. Sometimes people ask what it was like. Not many, and not often. But every now and then someone from a university, or a newspaper, or a government archive will send a letter or make a phone call and ask you to remember. You do your best. You describe the light. You describe the ash. You describe the taste in your mouth, like copper and dust, like the air had been boiled and served back to you. But no matter how carefully you explain it, you can see in their eyes that they don't understand. They nod and take notes. Then they file the interview away, and your memory becomes just another line in someone else's research. Your bones still remember. They creak differently than they used to. Your skin still feels thin in certain places, especially in the winter. There are nights when your stomach cramps in a way that makes you curl forward like a child. You sit quietly through the pain, your hands pressed together, your teeth clenched until it passes. It always passes, but never cleanly. You have learned that healing doesn't mean returning to how you were. Sometimes it just means continuing to exist. The Daigo Fukuryumaru is in a museum now. What's left of her? You saw a photo once. Restored wood, clean railings, ropes coiled neatly for visitors. A plaque in both Japanese and English explaining what happened in neutral terms. Exposed to radioactive fallout. Caught in nuclear testing. You read the words carefully. They are not wrong, but they are not enough. They do not say what it felt like to scrape ash off your bowl before eating. They do not describe the look in your crewmate's eyes when he realised his skin was coming off in patches. They do not mention the silence that spread through the hospital like fog after Kuboyama died. You went to see the boat once, not as a guest of honour, not with a guide, just as a man in a quiet coat, walking the exhibit with other visitors. No one recognised you. You stood beside a small group of students who read the display aloud to each other, then moved on without comment. You stayed longer. You touched the railing, the part that hadn't been behind glass, and felt the wood beneath your fingers. It wasn't the same. The salt had been cleaned away. The smell of fish was gone. But for a moment, you could almost hear the engine humming. You could almost feel the ocean beneath your feet. No one tells you what to do with all of it. The memories, the aches, the knowledge that your body carries a map of something most people can ignore. You've tried to forget at times, to put it behind you. But forgetting isn't something you can choose. The past doesn't ask permission before it resurfaces. It waits in small moments, in the whistle of the kettle, in the shape of your grandson's hands, in the scent of diesel when a delivery truck idles too close. You've thought about writing it down, all of it, not for the world, just for yourself, just to see the shape of the story as you lived it, not as others told it. But each time you sit down with a pen, the words seem too heavy or too small. Some memories don't want to be preserved. They want to fade, to blur at the edges, to erode gently, like footprints in sand. You've started to let them. There are still days when you feel angry, not often, not sharply, but in a dull, quiet way that sits beneath your ribs. Angry that no one warned you. Angry that they kept testing. Angry that you were told to be silent, then forgotten when you did. But the anger doesn't move anymore. It just stays where it is, folded up like a paper crane, left on the shelf beside your medical forms and the photos from when you were younger. Other days, you feel proud. Not because you survived, but because you endured, because you came home, because your wife still sits beside you, and your daughter still calls, and your grandson still asks what kind of fish tastes best in miso soup. You tell him it depends on the season. You don't tell him what the sea used to taste like. You let him keep his hunger simple. There will never be justice, not the kind that repairs anything. But there is something like truth, if you look carefully enough. It lives in the faces of the men who never returned, in the stories that were nearly buried, in the ash still trapped in the corners of the hold, in the dust of the museum floor, in the quiet between headlines. It lives in you too, though you don't speak of it much anymore. You have lived long enough to watch the world pretend that the danger was measured, that the cost was known, that the harm was justified. But your body is still here. Your story is still here. And even if the textbooks forget you, your skin has not. It remembers the silence of your captain, the way he watched the horizon after the sky turned white. It remembers the weight of the air as the ash began to fall, the feel of it clinging to your lashes, the grit in your teeth, the way no one said to run. It remembers the hospital, the smell of bleach, the rust in your spit, the drip of the IV that never made anything better. It remembers the voice through the wall. Kuboyama's last apology. You never asked to be part of this. You never wanted history. You only wanted to fish. And now, you sit in silence. The sky outside is clear. That brings us to the end of tonight's story. A quiet life derailed by silence, buried under ash, and folded into footnotes most people will never read. If you'd like early access to more quietly haunting histories, ad-free audio of the episodes, or just want to support the show, there's a link to the Patreon in the description. Feel free to like, subscribe, or leave a comment with other forgotten lives and overlooked tragedies you'd like to see explored. If you're listening on a podcast app, a rating or review helps more people find their way to these stories. And special thanks to the supporters who make this show possible, including our chroniclers, Andrew S., Amanda Lamke, and Rich Davis. Sleep well.